Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. If you would like to support this channel, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you enjoy the content. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Bridezilla. This all happened a few weeks ago. A longtime friend of Gemma's group was getting married in another state. On the day of the wedding, she suddenly had a problem with one girl who wore glasses, which she didn't have an issue with beforehand. The glasses girl told her she wouldn't wear them during the vows and pictures, but the Bridezilla didn't want her wearing them at all. She was screaming at her to not put them on for the rest of the day. Obviously, she couldn't do that, since she needs to see. The argument got more heated, until Bridezilla gave her the ultimatum to take them off and keep them off or leave. This is when Gemma and the other bridesmaids stepped in. They told Bridezilla she was out of line and that they would all leave if she forced the girl with glasses to leave. Bridezilla called their bluff and, being maids of honor, the bridesmaid left the wedding and decided to celebrate and eat at a restaurant before they head back home. Bridezilla called them several times after they left, telling them that she didn't care about the glasses anymore and begged them to come back to the venue. They not only refused, but also chose to end the friendship with her altogether. Gemma said that the wedding proceeded, just minus the bridesmaids and a few awkward stares because everyone heard the Bridezilla screaming from earlier. Gemma told me that the Bridezilla has always been like this, throwing a tantrum when she doesn't get her way, and that the meltdown at the wedding was just the last straw for them. Personally, I think she's got a monk's patience if she put up with her for that long. The next story is called Opt Out. Several years ago, I worked for a large non-profit. I was hired as a temp, but worked hard and got hired permanently as a director in a little over a year. I was the youngest person ever hired for that role. I reported to an associate director. Our title system was weird, who was great. About a year later, he announced his retirement, and while I was sad he was leaving, I was thrilled that I had his support and was a shoe-in for his job. Unfortunately, there was one AD, Lisa, from another group. She was marketing and I was communications, who thought I was a bit of an upstart and didn't like me much. I left on a planned vacation and returned to find that Lisa had convinced the head of the organization to combine the marketing and comms group with her as the sole AD. So no promotion for me. At this point, I was in the middle of a huge project to build and launch a new listserv. It was perpetually 1995 there. I had to coordinate with IT to build a new server, sign-up forms, etc. It was for members, and we planned to launch it at our annual conference to encourage people to sign up. Well, Lisa didn't think we'd get enough participants if it was opt-in. She wanted us to automatically add all members, around 5,000, to the list and give them the option to opt out. I argued against this as politely as I could for weeks. IT backed me up. No one was going to find and use the unsubscribe link, and the minute the first person had reply all to be removed from the list, it was going to explode. But Lisa knew best. So the day of the conference comes, and I asked IT to be on call, even though it's a weekend and they are technically off. I confirm in writing, one last time with Lisa, that this is opt out. She says yes. How many times do I have to say it? Opt out. So the head of the organization makes an announcement about the list during her opening speech, and we go live. IT called me within about 15 to 20 minutes because the server was so inundated with reply all emails that it was crashing. We scrapped the entire project within an hour. The head of the organization was livid, but I just forwarded my last email with Lisa. By the time they offered me Lisa's job, I had a new position lined up elsewhere with a 33k raise. The third story is called Don't Understand Business. I worked in a plastic manufacturing plant. I was told I didn't understand business. We had bought a machine brand new for 750k and it was making us a fair amount of money. My bosses didn't want to do the regular maintenance on it though, so as expected, it began having issues. I was running the machine one night and noticed it began leaking either oil or hydraulic fluid. I immediately told my boss we needed to shut it down, because not only was the machine getting worse, but it was starting to spray fluid all over the parts. I was told no, this machine had to run, or we would lose $500 an hour. I suggested placing the mold in another machine, but I was told no. and further told I didn't understand business. Well, as expected, it had more problems, which I reported, but was told they might take the parts despite being covered in the fluid. I asked if he was sure they wanted it to keep running. They looked at me and firmly said yes, so I did. Eventually the grinding sound hits and the machine shut down. They freaked out, trying to fix it, but it was no good. They moved the mold into a different machine and had to rerun all the parts. And remember that $500 an hour they lost for the machine being down? Well, instead of being down 24 to 36 hours, costing them about $18,000, the machine was down 3 weeks, costing in production $252,000, plus another $45,000 for a new motor. Clearly, losing almost $300,000 makes way more sense than $18,000. They are right, I don't understand that kind of business. The last story is called Do It This Way. Being a travel nurse in the operating room has its benefits. The pay, the ability to take time off between assignments, and the bits of malicious compliance that makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. Been at this hospital for 2 months. I've worked with this particular surgeon a handful of times, but it's always been the same procedure, so I know what he wants for every step of the case. I'm about to start applying skin prep to where the surgeon is going to operate. He always wants the armpit, front shoulder and chest of the specific side prepped. We are operating on the patient's right side. They are already asleep and the right arm is padded and secured on an arm board. Before I start prepping, the scrub tech immediately says, you need to undo their arm from the board so that you can prep the whole arm. I tell them no, the surgeon wants it prepped this way. The arm stays on the board. The scrub tech hadn't done this case with this doctor in quite some time either, but they still decided to explain how the whole arm should be prepped for this procedure. I ignored them. I begin my prep. Less than a minute later, the charge nurse comes in to log into a portable X-ray device. The scrub tech decides to ask the charge nurse how the surgical site should be prepped for this case, right in front of me. The charge nurse backs up the scrub tech and tells me I should be prepping the whole arm in addition to the sites that I mentioned. I protested, but Dr. X doesn't want that. He always wants the same areas prepped and draped accordingly. The charge nurse wasn't budging, and they demand I unfasten the arm and do it their way instead. I sigh and say okay. I prep the whole arm and I'm holding it in my sterile glove while waiting for the drapes and stockinette to be applied. All of a sudden, the most glorious thing happens. The surgeon arrives with the charge nurse still in the room. Did you prep the whole arm? He asked me. Yep. Why did you do that? You've been here 2 months. How do you not remember the prep by now? I was told to prep it this way. By who? Who told you to do it this way? The surgeon was upset due to his delay. As a traveler, I've learned to take the heat for making small mistakes, and I was contemplating taking the fall for this, so that we could just move on with the rest of the day. But before I could speak, my charge nurse was actually humble, and admitted that they told me to prep the whole arm. The doc looked at me. Did you tell them how I prefer it to be done? I did. The doc turned back to the charge nurse and proceeded to lambast her for delaying the case. The scrub tech just stared blankly at the wall. But I didn't look or listen. I just stood there enjoying the moment with the biggest grin under my mask. It's a nice day once someone else proves you were right. Needless to say, I didn't renew my contract at that hospital. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and want to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.